young Germans here have done their job. They've held the Americans long enough for reinforcements to turn up. And we can see here, it's again, it's a mixed group of reinforcements. This is not the Panzer Division. This is the sort of firepower of the Kampfgruppe. In front, we have SDKFZ 222, a light armoured car, did great service in the Western Desert with Rommel, armed with a 20mm cannon. It's getting a bit elderly looking by this stage. They're pleased to see the big phone in the middle. To the rear, we have a Hannah, because only the Panzer Grenadiers had access to this kind of armoured support, this kind of armoured transport. The average Wehrmacht soldier would go to war on his own 2 feet and be supplied from horse-drawn wagons. Taking up a tactical position here to cover the potential approach of the Amis, the Americans. This is a real threat. That target is capable of taking out anything that the Allies have. Anything that the Allies have 2 kilometers away. It's very, very powerful. It's also very, very heavily armoured. It's going to take something to penetrate that heavy armour. A British 17-pounder anti-tank gun, that'll do it. But the Americans haven't necessarily got access to that. At the moment, the only armoured support they have are 2 light tanks. We're getting a good view. Of both the camouflage and the lighter armoured vehicles. The use of natural camouflage to break up the airline and primarily protect them from air attack. But also the Zimmerit. All the big tiger. That's ripple the back to the armour. Case the flight of the aircraft with a view to preventing the use of magnetic mining. The Germans were convinced that the Allies would be rushing up to the tank, slapping up the line on the side, and then taking out that way. Now, we did actually have magnetic mining, so we did put mine, which would have done the job, but it was never done, it was never attempted. The Russians tried it once and it failed. But throughout the war, this is to mark the position of the American infantry. If there are any Allied aircraft in the air, we don't want them bombing the American position, so they're marking their front line with coloured smoke. The 222 deciding discretion is the better part of valour. And then there's a white flag in the village. There's a white flag. The Germans surrendered. Now remember, some of these German troops, some of these Panzer Grenadiers might be 16 or 17 years old. They might never have been in combat before.
Yeah, it is.
They've just gone through a terrifying, gut-wrenching experience. Some of them have been told they'll be shot by the Americans if they surrender. Others have decided that surrender is the only obvious thing to do. There goes the Jeep, I think it's calibrated.
Yeah.
Try and put yourself in the mind of one of these young Americans. Americans from Wisconsin, Arkansas, never been out of the state before, let alone overseas, are thrust into this visceral battle. Megatron 276 Fury! GMC Deuce the Half and the reenactors from History United. There we go. With his Jeep. Bring up the rear. M4, A1, Sherman. Which has, I suggest to you, every right for itself. Tank 1, World War II. So people might argue about the T-34 without those 50,000 Sherman.
Now you would have seen, we talked a little bit earlier, you're going to see again the M47 tank, etc. That's a Rush tank in the early 1950s. This Centurion tank is really a World War II tank that we're designing. And what's so good about it is it's because it's a tank we can develop. We have a version of the Merlin, of course. So that engine again has got meat to it, and it's well tried and tested by the time we're putting it in the famous Centurion. It's a tank that can be repaired by the crew, which is why the crew like it. This is still the generation of a spanner and a hammer and guys with their backsides in the air, engine decks up, let's have a fiddle, we can get this going again by morning. So in terms of being able to keep a Centurion going, you've got much greater chance of doing that. You need a gun as big as a 7.2 inch howitzer or 183 millimeters. That is whopping. And in actual fact, this becomes the biggest direct fire gun ever fitted on a tank. And by direct fire, it's not popping things over in the distance, point the gun at the target, off it goes. We think we're going to need them for taking on not the T-54s that we know about, and then later the T-55s. That T-10 tank, whatever the Russians are coming next in their heavy tank program. So they test this new gun. I say it's new, it's really developed from a howitzer. 183 millimeters, that size of the hole at the end of the barrel. It's going to fire something called a HESH round, high explosive squash head. We come up with that in Britain towards the end. So they start off with what they call Stage 1, FV4005, that's what this is. Start here, and they carry on experimenting with this till about the mid-1950s. But then we realise it's redundant because we can do what this tank was going to do with missiles instead. And we also, it's only a while later, but we find out the Russians have dropped the idea of heavy tanks. So we don't actually need it. But it's a bit of a if they had been made. This is what the Americans come up with, is a similar answer to that problem. We've got, this is the American M103, this version the A2, it's a slightly souped up version of it. 1950 again, America has basically dropped the idea of the tank. We've got stratofortresses, we've got nuclear weapons we can use. Who needs tanks anymore? Korean War kicks off, we're going to use tanks all over again. Very quickly, they've got to get back in the tank game. So for the Korean War, they're reactivating, they're taking M26 Pershing tanks off of gate guards, monuments, get anything that they can get out to Korea in time. They start a program, that's we see the M47, they start the program.
So, this is Ajax from the Ajax family, this is the gun variant, a strike and reconnaissance vehicle. This will operate a little bit further back from the Jackal, still in that recce gap in front of us. Okay, you'll hear I said strike and reconnaissance. That's a change in doctrine for us. This is the spiritual successor to a CBRT, a scimitar. It's much bigger, but it's much more advanced. This is the most technologically advanced medium weight armoured vehicle in the world. The cannon that you can see there, 40mm, case telescopic, a big upgrade from the 30mm Raden. Not only can we shoot further, but we can have a better effect on more heavily armoured targets with it. Fitted with an array of sonic sensors that can pick up and ID vehicles or munitions from the same. Is identify targets for this. Challenger 2, OES, Megatron. Megatron, the vehicle I get to work with every week, so-called Megatron because all the trials, bits and pieces that have been added to it over the history, it's transforming all the time. What is it? Ultimately, it's a Challenger 2. Dressed up in Barracuda, okay, so that is a multi-spectrum camouflage. Not only does it visually disrupt things, but also helps.
Army, they will be going to places to fight. Politicians you voted to power will be